In this video, I'm going to cover 3 changes I made this year that's caused some really nice body recomposition. Since January, my waist is almost 2 inches less and I'm almost the exact same weight, and you can clearly see I have a more muscular and leaner body. And here's the thing with recomposition, which if you don't know what body recomp is, it's basically where you're around the same weight, but you now are leaner because you have more muscle. And most people say to get recomposition, you need one of 3 scenarios. Either you're brand new to training, you had a long layoff from training, or you're on steroids. And I can confidently say I'm none of those 3. I have been training consistently for 15 years. I didn't have any injuries or any reason to skip training for a long time, and I'm definitely not on steroids. I'm a lifetime natural. So for a little reference here, I started a cut back in January. I went from about 181 pounds down to 168 pounds. This is part of what I call my maintenance plan. I usually go a year or 2 without any dieting, and then I do small cuts to get back down and try to keep myself in about a 10 to 15 pound range. So when I started my reverse in May, I basically vowed to not cut until 2025.
Here, hold me accountable. I will not diet again until at least some point in 2025.
I was basically hoping to get up to no more than about 100 to 185 pounds in that time. And I gotta tell you, I kind of was getting a little bit concerned how quickly I was gaining weight, as it's only been about 18 weeks since I started my reverse, and I'm already up 8 pounds and actually 10 pounds from my lowest weight earlier in the reverse. So I thought, man, like how big am I gonna get by the time 2025 comes around? However, it also felt like I was seeing some really nice muscle growth. This is why it's so important to take pictures and measurements and not just rely on the scale no matter how experienced you are. Because while I felt like I could see changes, I honestly hadn't looked back to see what the differences were when I was around the same weight. So I finally did that, and I was at 176 pounds last week. I went back and found the closest weight I could find where I had pictures, and that's where this came from. I was absolutely blown away when I saw this. So anyways, let's get into the 3 changes I made. The first one easily being the most important, at least in my opinion, and that is I changed the way I trained. I actually reduced my training volume, and I significantly slowed down the movements, or at least the eccentric portion, the lengthening of the muscle. So if you think about a bicep curl, when you're lowering the weight, that is the eccentric portion. And then at contraction, I'm squeezing hard and just taking my time, creating more time under tension and trying to focus really hard on that mind-muscle connection. Now, I'm not doing this for some of the movements that I just want to get stronger at, like for instance deadlifts, which technically there actually is no eccentric portion of a deadlift, but that, and I'm trying to get stronger at bench press, hip thrusts, some other things. But for the most part, most of my movements have slowed down considerably. I'll probably just play a bunch of videos of me doing different movements so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Now, some will say that it really is the time or tension that matters, and I would say to a degree, but what I think where the big difference is between slowing down the movement and going faster through it is that you are getting more of that mind-muscle connection and making sure you're really utilizing the muscles during the movement itself to create as much mechanical tension as possible. Whereas if you're just trying to move the weight from point A to point B, it can be easy for other things to take over. So I personally think slowing down the movement forces you to create that more, and I'm really just focusing hard on the muscle itself, and man, does it make a big difference. And I'm seeing muscle growth I never thought I would see at this stage of my lifting career. Now, another thing you want to do is make sure you're getting close to failure. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to failure. I think it's a good idea to challenge that occasionally and get there so you know what it feels like, but research has shown you can leave 1 to 3 reps in the tank and get just as good of results as going to failure. However, what you think is 1 to 3 reps in the tank is probably a lot more challenging than what you're actually doing. So if you don't actually go to failure where you actually physically cannot lift the weight anymore, you don't know what that feels like. And I'm telling you, to transform your body, you really need to be challenging yourself significantly. You're not going to do this easily. So if the reps don't physically hurt, you're not getting close enough to failure. If those reps aren't significantly slowing down by the time you get to the end, you're not getting close enough to failure. If you're not making those ugly faces, you're probably not getting close enough to failure. Now, the second thing I started doing was more optimally spacing out my protein. So before, I was doing 3 meals, spacing out my protein evenly. Now, I personally just don't eat in the morning because I'm never hungry in the morning. I never have been. So it was basically lunch, dinner, and then before bed. However, you can only utilize so much protein in one sitting for anabolism. So if you can space out your protein into 4 or 5 meals, that's more likely to be more optimal and get more use out of the total protein you take in. So what I started doing is the days after I lifted, I added a 4th serving of protein, basically doing a protein shake in the morning. And the reason I do a protein shake is because, again, I'm not hungry and it's a little bit less filling. But I'm telling you, even sometimes I still almost gag because it's so hard for me to eat in the morning, but I just want to do everything I can to make progress right now. And the third change I made, I got back on creatine. I had been off of it for, I think, basically since the pandemic started. but I got off of it and just never got back on for whatever reason. And as I got into the reverse and was focusing a little bit more on muscle building, I was like, you know what, I should add this back in. And within a few weeks, yes, I saw a couple pounds come up on the scale from it. That's normal. Remember, that's creatine, phosphate, and water storing in your muscles, which is a good thing. Another reason why you can't get too caught up in that scale. But getting back on that, within a few weeks, I could tell more fullness in my muscles. There's no supplement that's more research backed to be effective. Making creatine part of your routine is something I highly recommend, but there's a lot of considerations you need to take in. So if you want to know everything from the benefits, how much to take, when to take it, everything you could possibly need to know about creatine, then make sure you check out this top video next, and I'll walk you through everything you need to know, and I'll see you in that other video.